Sometimes in life we're faced with hard decisions and we're torn between different options. We don't know which one we should choose, and this can be a source of distress and anxiety, and we can find ourselves hoping that someone else could give us the right answer and lift the burden from our shoulders. But unfortunately, I think that this longing is naive and it's also misguided because at the end of the day, no one else can give you sustainable answers to real important dilemmas in your life. And so in this video, I'd like to kind of explore this idea with you. Now, to give a couple of examples, these types of big life decisions, they could be your career path, maybe you're torn between a couple of different options. It could also be a relationship question. For example, you've been in a relationship for a couple of years and in some way it's going very well, but maybe there's something important for you that's not really being met. And so you're not sure if you should stay or leave or, try to find some solution. Maybe you had an important opportunity come up, but if you take it, you have to change, you have to move to a different country. And so you're not sure, is it worth it? And there's like a lot of these dilemmas. One I can think of is kind of, would you rather kind of sacrifice some of your safety or put it into danger, or in exchange for greater integrity, or the opposite? You want to compromise your integrity in order to boost your safety. And so you've got a lot of these different types of dilemmas that come up, and so we want answers because we want to know what we're supposed to do, right? How should we proceed? Because there's like some important consequences that will happen based on our choices. And this kind of ties back into the idea of the existential stake of freedom and the fact that having the responsibility for our decisions and the wide array of possibilities we can choose from can be pretty daunting. And I talked about this in my video on existentialism. I also talked about this in my video on existential bad faith, which is kind of an urge we have to reject our freedom and have external sources dictate us, what we should do. And this way we don't have to deal with this pressure. Actually, I've been watching the last season of The Boys, season 4, and there's a little bit of that theme that comes up where one or two characters that kind of reminisce with some ambivalence on times in their life when they didn't have any choice but to follow specific instructions. In some ways, it's very restraining and hard, and like. But on the other hand, it's like there's a freedom in freedom from freedom, so to speak. And so one of the characters is feeling some ambivalence about that. And this type of issues, or like this kind of desire to be freed, or not to know what the right answer is and wishing someone else could give it to you, is something I've experienced myself, and I'm still experiencing it now. And so this video is kind of a reminder to myself and to others who might be in a similar situation that, like, it's kind of a foolish hope to want someone else to answer these questions. And the sooner you kind of realize this, the better your odds of actually working yourself on it and finding some level of answer. Okay, so let's start by kind of giving some explanations for why other people can give you sustainable answers to some of your deep-set dilemmas. So the first of all is that these questions are complicated, right? If they were easy to solve, then you would have already solved them. So that's pretty obvious, but that's one first component of this equation. Another is that you have internal criteria. Okay, there's like a lot of things you care about, and you're torn because you don't know exactly which one you should give more weight to, or how to find the best compromise that that works the best with all of your different concerns. And so the problem is that other people, they don't have access to your internal criteria. They have their own criteria, and so you can either spend a lot of time with them so they kind of try and understand all the parameters in your head, and hopefully maybe they can give a somewhat a better answer. But other people, they'll put themselves into your shoes and they'll give you a quick answer. Maybe perhaps if it's a topic in which they have a lot of experience, it will be a decent answer, but it will still be based on their own criteria rather than yours. And basically, if you kind of just roll with someone else's idea or a solution, but you don't really take the time to see if it works with all of your criteria, it's not going to be sustainable, because it might work short term because you're like, oh, now I've got an answer. But then as you start living that answer, you realize that there's a lot of concerns that you didn't actually address, and they come back and they're like, hey, we're not okay with this. So it's not going to work. I think another factor that can make this kind of harder than it needs to be is that we tend to, or at least I tend to, but I think I'm not the only one, to have this answer which will be so good we won't have any doubts whatsoever. There won't be any counter arguments or dissent to an extent. It'll be the perfect answer, and then no more distress, no more agonizing over which solution is a good one. But I don't think these answers exist. I mean, like, there are definitely better answers and worse answers, and you've got some that are very, like, highly good, we'll say, but you'll never have an answer that's so good there's no question. There's no like, are you sure? It's just a question of having those doubts to manageable levels, and you've already made the whole discernment process, and you're pretty sure that even if there's, like, some few remaining doubts, overall you've made a good choice. Yeah, but the thing is, as I mentioned in my video on on Pyrrhonism, which is called, I think, "Is Uncertainty Even Possible?" Basically, if you go deep into some philosophical thought on epistemology and just on a logical level, you can see that it doesn't seem possible to absolutely justify any claim. So any claim will always be susceptible to questioning. Can be, are you sure about this, or what about that? And it's always possible to kind of inject a little bit of doubt. So if you're looking for an answer that is resilient to all doubts, I'm not sure you'll ever find it. And then I think another thing that to take into consideration is that these answers, they usually tend to take time to find, or, like, it's kind of a process, and there's a little bit of it's necessary to go through some trial and error before you can find a sustainable solution. And so when if we're too stuck in an overthinking mode where we just want to find the perfect solution without trying anything, well, we might actually be wasting time, because making mistakes might be the best way to actually start finding some elements of answers. So I think I'll use I'll use an example from my own story to illustrate a little bit this whole topic, this whole idea. Some people have a very strong passion or a very clear idea of what it is they want to do. That's never been my case. Some people are known to have a lot of things they're kind of decent at and interest, and so which one should you devote your life to? Especially because there is this narrative in society. They're supposed to find the one thing or one career, and that fits neatly into one of the specific job posts that exist out there. That's not been my case. So I wasn't super sure. There was a few different options I could have taken when I was kind of leaving high school. Uh, on the one hand, I always kind of saw myself pursuing somewhat of an artistic path, because I was raised in a family of artists, and that was kind of, was like very immersed in that environment. But the problem is, part of being an artist is there's some unpredictability in that. So when I was a kid, at least my parents mostly lived of their arts by selling paintings, and that's, you don't know when you'll sell. So I didn't live in, like wretched poverty, and I never went hungry as a kid, but sometimes the paychecks came in the nick of time, we'll say. So a little bit of a stress from time to time, and I think probably a mix between my personality and my upbringing. But I kind of like predictability. I like visibility. I like to know what to expect. So going full artist and not even knowing exactly what I should be aiming for as an artist was a little stressful. And so in when I discovered programming in high school, and I kind of enjoyed it, it's fun to tinker and kind of create your little things on your computer. I thought, maybe that's a good idea, because that's a lot more a more stable career path for sure, and I kind of like it. So in the end, that's what I chose for my studies. I did programming, and it was still fun to study it mostly. And then came the time to actually start working. In the course of my studies, we had to do several internships. And as I was doing the internships, I realized that it's a lot different to do. Well, I guess that's true for a lot of fields and activities, but it's a lot different when you're doing it for yourself than when you're doing it in the context of work. And most of the fun of the activity kind of completely disappeared when I was actually doing it in a work environment. And yeah, I was really not enjoying it at all. It was pretty soul sucking, and my first internship was 4 months, and then after that, I was like, "Whoa, I don't know how I managed to survive for 4 months doing this." And then I had other internships. My last one, my final internship, was 6 months, and at the end, I was like, really like, "Oh my God, I can't do this. It's not going to end well. Like, I don't know, I can't do like I don't see myself sustainably being able to do this." I won't get into all the details of this existential dread of of internship and development. But so during my last years of studies, I'd been kind of working on making little video games on the side, which is kind of a mix between programming and art to an extent. And I was pretty much enjoying myself doing that. And I had a friend who was also interested in game dev, and so we decided, okay, we both hate those internships, so let's try to work on video games, just the two of us. I had some savings, and he was working part time, and so for a couple of months, once we had finished our studies, we worked independently, trying to make games. So we started by doing a couple of prototypes, and we even made a full, it's a small game, but a full mobile game that we published on the App Store, on the Android App Store. Now it's not available anymore because reasons. And the thing is, going in this video game, or this game dev endeavor, I was pretty convinced that this would be the right path, because it was something I was pretty passionate about. I like doing it. It kind of mixed a lot of my different interests, and so I was like, this is the path. This is how I'll escape the the existential horror of my internships. But then I was disillusioned because it wasn't going as well as I thought. I mean, I wasn't super satisfied by the projects we were working on. We like video games is, well, I mean, there's a lot of industries, I guess, where this is the case, but it's very competitive. So you've got like bajillion, especially mobile games, you've got bajillions of game out there. And so any kind of crappy idea which you come up with, there were already, 15 competitors that did it way better than we could, because we were just beginning and learning the ropes. And yeah, I don't know, like I didn't really, the more I went, I think the less I kind of saw the purpose in what I was doing, and so I ended up giving up. After 3 months, I said, "Okay, I'm doing something else." And so I kind of had a little bit of an existential crisis at this point in time. It was around 4 years ago. I was 24, and I'll spare you all the details. Yeah, there were some other pretty significant events that were kind of bringing chaos into my life. But anyway, so I started really stressing out, because I was like, okay, I thought this was what I was supposed to be doing. What do I do now? Yeah, and I was starting to be very worried that actually there was no career path that would work for me, that could work for me. I decided to take another angle this time. Another area of interest I was growing more and more invested into at this point in time was psychology. And so that's when I kind of started delving into personality frameworks, and kind of, I think that's when I started thinking about self-knowledge more actively, and kind of thinking, okay, what's my profile? What might be a good match? If considering my strengths and weaknesses and what I like, and the different career paths I have, what would be the good match? And so after mulling it over for a while, I thought, okay, let's try psychology. I think maybe that seems to be a good match with what my profile and what I'm interested in, and maybe this will be what will work. But in order to be a psychologist, you have to do, well, at least in France, you have to do 5 years of studies, and I just finished doing 5 years of study, and so it was a big commitment, and I wanted to be sure that this was the right call, that this was my career path. Since experience had proved that I could be pretty sorely mistaken when I thought I knew what I wanted to do, I decided, okay, so this time I'm going to try and corroborate my hypothesis with people that kind of know better than me, or that's got some idea. So I was talking with career counselors, and I don't know, they weren't super helpful. I mean, they were being nice and all, but the thing is, if I kind of put forth my argumentation for why I would fare well in psychology, I remember one of the person that kind of had to validate my profile to an extent to say that this seems like a fairly believable enough life path kind of your reorientation. Like I just like gave her my argumentation and she was completely sold. Like she thought like, wow, perfect match. But I wasn't that sure. And like, I mean, like I tried to give my best, argumentation, but I wasn't as convinced as she was once I was done presenting it. Another thing I tried was I started seeing a psychanalyst, and in the hopes, basically, I wanted him to tell me yes or no, is this like the right life path for me? Is that what I should be doing? So yeah, that was my main motivation. I mainly wanted to know the answer. Should I commit? Do I start doing my studies? Is this the right pick for me, or did I miss something? Or what if this is not my right pick? What is my right pick? Right. That's kind of, I wanted the answer to my dilemma of what am I supposed to do with my life career wise. So I think he didn't really have an answer, of course, because I mean, what he how was he supposed to find the perfect answer when we just barely met? I mean, he couldn't divine it. I think to an extent he kind of knew that this wish to have the one perfect path was kind of foolish, but I don't think he did the best job of explaining to me that, or explaining why this wasn't going to work, and kind of be help me understand what I might be doing instead, what might be more helpful. So I didn't really get my answer. Well, yeah, nobody really gave me the answer I was looking for in the end. I just decided at this point in time, it seemed to me that it was better to kind of make a decision and keep moving on, keep the momentum flowing, even if I was making a mistake, because at least I was, progressing. And I agree with this. So I didn't really, as it turns out, that wasn't the right choice for me. I don't think so. I stopped doing my psychology studies after 1 year, but I don't regret it. I think it was the right move to try. And from this failure, so to speak, I did learn new things, and it helped refine my thoughts on what I should be doing, where I should be heading. And so that's an example that sometimes fumbling around and not being exactly sure can help you get clearer, because as long as you're kind of reflecting upon it, you can glean new tidbits of answers. And in the end, I think now I've kind of figured out the general life direction I want to go for, or at least I want to try to pursue. And it would involve some things that are pretty related to psychology, like helping people in a more restrained manner, and it's very centered on self-knowledge. So there's like a lot in common with psychology. So the title of this video and the general idea is a little bit depressing, or but what can we do? If we can't seek someone else to give us the perfect answer, then what should we do? And I do think there are things that are possible, even if getting the perfect answer isn't. I guess a good way to frame this, right, is what would I do now is the 24 years old version of me came to me for advice on their life path. I mean, to an extent, I'd be cheating a little bit, because now I could just give them the answer because I'm me from the future. But assuming I can't do that, can just offer my advice. What would I do? Do I think I could do anything for that guy? And I do think I could do some things, yes. First of all, I think that people can give you the perfect answer for you, but they can help you clarify your own answers, right? they can help you get more clarity on all the different things that are going on inside of you, your different concerns, your different values, what you care about, and kind of help, clarify what's going on and make it intelligible, right? Like kind of making like a drawing out clearly. Okay, you care about this, that, and that. Here are the different things to take into consideration. They could also help kind of point out blind spots, right? So maybe in our consideration, there are things we have missed or pieces of information we don't have. You might not be able to give someone else the perfect answers they're looking for, but you can potentially point out some blind spots they have. You know, they're not considering some information that you are privy to, and that might help them make a better informed choice. And I guess part of this would also be you can probably help them experiment in ways that are a little bit more in wiser ways, I guess. One last thing that also helps, and I think this is actually important, is kind of contextualizing what's going on and why it is that what they're looking for, they can't find it the way they're looking for it. And I think that's kind of something I would have liked. Now, I don't know if I would have been receptive because I can't go back in the past to check, but at that point when I was looking for this answer, most of the people I was asking the question to weren't really doing a good job at meeting me where I was at and explaining to me why what I was looking for was like it wasn't a question that could be really answered, at least not in this specific form. And I think that's kind of a frustration I have with like therapists, and that's actually happened to me more than once, where I think they're pretty bad at telling you, like you kind of in the market trying to buy something and they're not selling it, but they take like 5 or 6 sessions before they actually tell you. Well, at least that's in my experience. So it's like, I think like trying to understand what's going on and or what the other person wants and say, okay, I'm not sure what you want is actually doable, or I can't really help you exactly with that. There are other services or things I can help you with. Perhaps if you're interested, we can keep working together. If not, probably it's not going to work. You should probably try and look for someone else. That would have been nice. It would have saved me some time. But yeah, I think basically the best thing someone else can do for you is to help clarify what's going inside you, give you tools that will help you clarify your own answers and help you in experimenting more safely and maybe gain more insights from your experimentation. I think that's the best you can kind of hope for. But at the end of the day, I think you need to realize that you need to kind of rely on yourself to an extent and do your best to figure it out and try out stuff. But if you're always looking for someone else to give you the perfect answer, I think you'll just find yourself to be disappointed over and over. It takes time to sustainably remember that this is the case, because even now I'm the one saying this advice. I'm the one, making videos on existential bad faith, and still I find myself sometimes wishing that someone else, or at least that, or rather I find myself being disappointed that someone else didn't have the perfect answer for my dilemmas. So yeah, I hope you could glean something of value from this video. You might be interested in my video on existential bad faith, which covers some similar topics. And yeah, thanks for watching.